and looks about right where we're going to hand over to our friend over here. And this is about when they plug in fully.
Awesome. Let's dive in.
So I'm going to talk about the audio for the maps. We usually come in around the geolock stage. So if you want to go to the next slide.
I want to recognize that edit you made to the slide. He's got headphones on.
Well, Donnie did that for me.
I did
Donnie
that.
made all my slides
Did you notice
look
the
great.
first slide for Cliff's was not the Chief helmet?
No.
Yeah, you have to go back and look at it.
Someone's going to have to check the rebroadcast. I did notice yours had a bunch of color on it.
Yeah, I felt bad. I was like, I added color, and everyone else didn't, and I felt bad. So I modified. Cliff asked me to do something, and then Robbie, I just said, here you go.
Very nice, very nice.
So the first pass that audio does is an acoustics pass, and this determines our obstruction values for all sounds and our occlusion for all sounds. So obstruction is basically if a structure is in between the sound and you as the player, it will cause the sound to sound muffled or not as clear. Oh,
Yeah, Mike,
not close enough?
A little closer
That's
helps.
better?
Yes, that's
I was
fantastic.
worried about being too
Thank you,
loud.
Robbie.
I'm an audio person, so I forget. Anyways. So that's what obstruction is. It's basically how geo can affect a sound. So if you go behind a structure, like in that picture, there's the whirlpool machine in recharge between the one Spartan firing and the other one listening to it. That gunfire is going to sound muffled because there's a structure in front of it. Occlusion is how sounds travel from room to room. So in old Halo games, we did not have an advanced system, but in this one, we have an advanced system that simulates audio traveling from room to room better and more accurate to real life. So what it'll do is if somebody is firing in a different room, the audio will actually reposition itself to a portal or a doorway so that it plays from the nearest open area to the next room. This actually helps gameplay a lot because not only are you hearing somebody firing their gun in another room, but you're also hearing it from the nearest direction to get there. In old games, you just hear that somebody was firing on the other side of the wall, and if you didn't know the map really well, you'd have to figure out how to get there. So it kind of helps you without you even realizing it.
I remember, what was it, like 5 or 6 years ago when this first came on, and you were demonstrating it, how much of a difference it made through the map.
Yeah. It definitely
crazy.
makes the map sound better as well.
Yeah.
So it's a very nice detail that's working behind the scenes that does a lot of work. If you go to the next slide. How we do it is a technical audio designer will actually go in and draw acoustic zones for every room. What?
Is that you?
Not me, actually. We have a large audio team that does this kind of stuff. So
He rides on tanks.
what was that?
He rides on tanks.
Yeah, I just
does ride on
record
tanks.
sounds and take fancy selfies. But basically, they'll draw acoustic zones for every room, and they'll draw acoustic portals for every doorway. And basically, an acoustic zone will scan a room and figure out all the geo that's in there and lets the audio know what it can and can't go through. And acoustic portals lets it know what it can use to get from one zone to another. It can't go from one zone to another zone without a portal. Acoustic zones also contain a lot of information, like the type of reverb to use, the type of gun tail to play, and also the type of 2D sound to play. Acoustic portals tell the sound how much of it can come through it. So it's like the difference between an open window and a closed window.
It's also one of the reasons why audio comes in so late into the map's development, because it would be very bad if Robbie and the team set all that up and we decided to remove a wall or close a door.
Any differences between the geo after that point can throw it off. So if you throw a grenade in a corner, you might not hear it clearly because it thinks that there's geo there when it's not. So it has to come in after geolock, and Donnie has to behave and not change the geo.
Unless it's a bug, and then I'm allowed to fix it.
Yeah.
And then create
go to
another
next
bug in the
slide.
process.
This is a picture of live fire with all the zones and portals that Zeke, our senior technical audio designer, drew. Spent a lot of time doing that. If you notice that line of blue along the right side, that's actually several portals that he had to place just so you can hear the pelican that flies in the skybox. Without that, you would never hear that pelican because it's in a different zone than the rest of the play space.
Yeah, I was curious why we placed the audio zones on the edge of the map, just for that exterior.
Yeah, you have to account for any fancy art stuff Donnie does in the skybox.
To dig a little bit more why we do the fancy art stuff in the skyboxes, we have there's a lot of behind under the hood technical scaffolding that we have to set up, and one of those things is we partition up our level for memory optimization and for sometimes for more light map resolution, or I guess in our case light probe resolution. So that creates, again, more interesting things to solve, and that's where the audio team came in. It's like, okay, we can solve the fact that you now took your map and basically split it into two maps. So we appreciate it. I appreciate you, Robbie.
Thank you. So another pass we do is we place audio emitters. So a technical audio designer will go in and they'll place audio emitters so that I can play 3D sounds to support anything that Donnie creates, like a machine, a vent.
Our team creates.
Art team creates. I will stop blaming Donnie for everything. So there's some examples of things that audio emitters can be used for. They can be a point source or a spline. A spline is just a complex line that we can use to cover rivers and longer things where we want the sound to follow the player as they're walking along it. They also have, you see the graph in the top right corner, that's a attenuation curve, and that is basically how we control how the sound like the volume of the sound as you walk away from it. So every sound has an attenuation curve, and it's custom and set up unique just for that moment.
Every single one of those audio emitters you custom tune?
Yeah, the most popular
Wow.
one is the footstep one. Pro Team loves to complain or iterate on that one. So
Footsteps sounds are always a popular topic of discussion in
Yeah.
any game, really.
Yeah.
We just have a Ninja Fantasy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. But so you really go through on every map, customize all of these.
yes, and if you go to the
That's
next
so cool.
slide,
Yeah.
you'll see how many. So this is
Wow.
top down of Bazaar, and Joshua, our technical audio designer, went in and was meticulous and placed every one of those green dots, which represent the sounds, and the list of audio positionals for the map is on the left there. So there's a lot of different things that we placed in there to make Bazaar sound like it's alive.
All the more reason why Robbie will murder us if we go in and change anything after this step.
Yeah, these have to be aligned with the art. If they're not, then you'll hear like water drips when there's no puddle, or you'll hear like a vent when there's no vent.
Gotcha. Makes total sense.
We also do audio for dynamic objects, so like BTB big moments, for example, or like the loot cave and fragmentation. Also the piston and recharge, and the breakable stuff in Bazaar. One of the most complex ones that's worth talking about is the laser in Breaker. So that one was a technical and creative challenge. So we had to work around a lot of technical limitations that our engine has, as well as creative challenges.
You also had to work early with design on that.
Yeah.
So to see how it played the whole map.
Yeah, I was actually just about to touch on that. That comes into the creative challenge there. So level design actually wanted a sound that you can hear across the map, so that players know that the laser is about to fire and they don't die in an unjust way. So I had to figure out a sound that could play across the map every minute for 15 minutes. So on average in a match, it's going to play 15 times. So I had to figure out how to make a sound that did not annoy players, but also communicated that the laser was going to go on. It was really tough.
That's actually a good point to touch on for Greg's map, where we put that beautiful waterfall in, and then you were like, why did you put an amazing waterfall 5 feet away from our play space? Do you not know how loud a waterfall actually is?
Yeah, that attenuation curve for that waterfall
Yes.
was set up meticulously by Joshua as well to make sure that you weren't hearing white noise the whole time you were in the map. I also had to make sure the sound of the waterfall was not too white noisy too, because that can really disrupt gameplay. And it's important to note that all ambient sounds need to sound a little bit stepped back so that they don't distract from sandbox sounds, because we don't want players not to be able to hear gunfire or not to be able to hear footsteps. So there's a balance between putting sounds in there and not getting in the way of the important sounds. So there's a hierarchy, and ambiances are definitely on the lower, but we want to make sure it's as realistic as possible.
Yeah, so gameplay always comes first still.
Yes, that
Gameplay
is
always
the
comes
direction
first.
that we have to follow, kind of thing. Now I'm going to talk about asset creation. So any given map will create about 300 to 500 sounds for the map. Just for the map alone, just for ambiances. In the bottom left corner, you'll see a digital audio workstation, and that's where I create the sounds, and that's a picture of the session where I created the sounds for Streets. So basically what I do is I pull in a lot of source from several different locations. I might record it, make it with a synthesizer, or find it in our internal library, and I will affect it so that it sounds appropriate for the Halo universe and it fits in the map. And I will manipulate them by either layering, splicing them together, affecting them with a plugin, or stretching it, pitching it down. There's lots of tools you can kind of do to do that. On the top right, you see a picture of my Eurorack synthesizer. I'm quite proud of that thing. It makes some really sweet sounds.
Really proud of that thing.
Yeah. This is a video that we're going to play. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear it, but it basically shows collecting different source and the areas in which the source is kind of used in levels. You probably don't hear it here, but hopefully you can hear it on the stream. Since we can't hear it here, I'll just talk over it.
Yeah. Have you ever lost a mic in the water? You know, those mics were awfully close.
I have never lost a mic
Okay.
in the
I was
water.
gonna say,
actually.
very careful answer there.
Oh, there's the sound now.
Okay.
It might sound terrible here because of all the sound going around, but just know it sounds awesome if you were just
it's our
listening to the
waterfall.
video. This is actually a rain machine I made in our Foley room to simulate rain so that I can put it in recharge.
Does
Yep,
your
that's what
boss
that
know
is.
you were doing that?
Huh?
Does your boss know you were doing that in the
He
studio?
does now.
That's where all of our cups went to.
Ooh, it really
Ooh.
gets bassy up here, huh? Wow. I apologize in advance. That's a fridge that I found in a hotel room.
That's the studio. You're punching the
that's-
table.
Yeah, it's a massage machine that I'm using to make
Not our table, though.
rattles for Streets.
That was an expensive Red Bull.
Yeah.
You just paid twice for it.
Well, I canceled. Yeah, so all the computer sounds go there. A lot of computers, hums and stuff like that. Refrigerator sounds go there, like the one I recorded in that hotel room. The beep from the Red Bull.
Red Bull on Aquarius.
Yep. These sounds were recorded at the Computer Museum in Seattle.
I love that place.
And the rattle from the studio is
Oh.
right there.
So all of these are those custom audio emitters you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Perfect, like hand touch, fine tune to be perfect.
Yeah. This sounds so huge on here.
So if anyone saw our behind the scenes videos that we were doing a few years ago, Robbie was in charge of doing that. Had a bunch of video footage and the audio sounds recorded, and you can see some of those on the Halo YouTube channel. That was an effort pretty much driven by Robbie and the audio team. They just love sharing their work with the community, and we're getting a closer look here now too.
So you see all the synthesized sounds. Those were used for the breaker laser, as well as a lot of those metal creaks and hits were used for the structure that kind of moves on the right side of the breaker laser. Obviously, it sounds completely different from the source because you have to kind of dial it back and tune it so it sounds great in the environment. Another thing to note is the breaker laser actually sounds different if you're on the top layer versus if you're on the bottom layer.
Oh, wow.
And that's done using acoustic zones and mixed states. If you're in the bottom layer, you hear more lava being affected by the laser. If you're on the top, you hear more of just the laser and what's producing it, kind of thing.
Gotcha. So more of that splash on the
exactly.
lower level.
We wanted it to sound much more nastier when you're down there versus a little bit cleaner when you're on the top of it. And we do that with acoustic zones and mixed states that can be set on them. So the technical audio team did a lot of favors for me. I called in pretty much every one for the breaker laser. And that's how we do the audio for the map.
Awesome. Well, closing thoughts, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
I guess the last thing I would like to add is while there's only 3 of us up there, it actually takes a small army to build all of these maps. We're very happy to be representing, but there's a tremendous amount of people, even a tremendous amount of disciplines that weren't necessarily covered in here. They're all an amazing part of the team that it takes to actually take everything that we do and present it forward. So we really appreciate you spending almost 45 minutes with us. So anything else you two would like to add?
Yeah, you're saying about the big team size.
Yeah.
I get asked a lot about like, okay, Cliff, like, what's your pro tip about like, if I join the industry or anything like that? Like, what's like, my biggest thing I'll say is like teamwork. Like, I can't stress that enough. You could probably be extremely good at your job or your skill, but if you have no teamwork, no one's going to be wanting to like see your vision through. No one's going to want to like be around if you're grumpy and so forth. So if you're working together, like you can achieve your dreams, my dreams, Robbie's dreams, and so forth.
Yeah, got to be a team player. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. If it
And
wasn't
Robbie.
for Carson, that laser wouldn't sound good.
You survived, Robbie, by the way. You did good.
Any last closing thoughts?
No, I'm good.
No, you good? You good? Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us up here. Can I get a round of applause for the team behind making
you, everybody.
multiplayer
Thank you,
maps in
everyone.
Halo Infinite? Thank you, everyone. But guys, thank you so much for joining, putting this presentation together for everyone. And I hope you all enjoyed, and we will be doing even more community stuff here on the stage. We've got, I believe, Steve and Jen coming up to read some awesome lines, and then a Wave Heat 2 of the cosplay competition. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for joining us in person and online, and we will see you all in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for hosting us.
Yeah.